When we look at financial ratios, I think the one thing that we underestimate is the power of the local economy. During the break, I had a message from a farmer in the Free State who's exporting meat to America. And he says, Dion, what is the impact on my business? And I said to him, the price of your sheep meat, scalp fleece, has just gone up by 30%. He says, but who will buy my meat? You see, that is what it's all about, is the local economy is influenced by big decisions. And these big decisions include external things like Donald Trump making some statements, but it can also be locally, where the Minister of Finance decided to increase VAT by 0.5%. The moment they increase VAT, where do you find yourself? You and I don't have a choice. We need to pay more. And suddenly petrol is more expensive, food is more expensive, school fees are more expensive, paying for courses are more expensive, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. It has an impact on our budget. And for most of us, if you earn 100,000 Rand a year, that's 500 Rand, 100,000 Rand a month, 500 Rand is gone. So it impacts every single person along the way. A long time ago, Jochie Skoll says to me, Dion, what is that one job that I need to have on my organogram to be a good municipal manager? And I said, an economist. You see, what an economist does, it helps us. It builds an understanding of how do we build our business. I'm fortunate that I work with a lot of people in a lot of spaces. My biggest challenge that I have right now is the fact that the whole world is automating. Universities as we knew them, I think they're going to go away. You can now do a Harvard MBA in South Africa, which is free, unless you want the qualification, the paperwork. I mean, just think about that. You can have a Harvard MBA, which is free, unless you want the qualification. Why would you like to have the qualification? I want to be an employee. If you want to work for a company, you need to produce your papers. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, you don't need papers. You want to start a business. How do I start a business? Oh, I need a Harvard MBA. So you access the Harvard MBA, you get all the knowledge and the skills, and you run your own business. And because you're not going to employ yourself on the condition that you have papers, you have a Harvard MBA and you run a business according to those standards. So in the education space, everybody is going online. A while back, I felt that in my space, I was far ahead of the University of Stellenbosch. I still think I am. I still think if you look at our online platforms, we're way ahead of where the university could have been. I'm not way ahead of UCT. UCT is better than me. But you know what? ChatGPT is now better than all of us. You can study through ChatGPT and you can learn a lot of skills that you and I simply cannot get access through on a very easy basis. So now I need to bring something to the table that ChatGPT cannot bring. And that is practical case studies, experience of things that I've seen, best practices and so forth. And if I don't have that skill, it's going to be difficult for me to participate in this environment. All right. So the local economy is really important. If you look at the previous page, there's a couple of bullet points under 6.3.3.1, for example, is, what will the local business climate be? And we all know that everybody says the economy is not going to improve. The economy is under pressure. There's no immediate light in the end of the tunnel. And that means that, should we spend money on expanding our businesses? Should we employ people? If the economy is not growing, should you employ more people? The second question is, how will economic conditions in nearby cities affect the local economy? I'm in the Western Cape. It seems to me in the Western Cape, we're going to have more surety on electricity, more surety on water, better quality of roads. So if I'm a farmer in the Western Cape, to transport my goods will mean lower maintenance costs on my trucks. If you are in the Northwest Province, high maintenance on the trucks, poor municipal environment and so forth. Now, how do you balance that? Number 3, what's the outlook for employment in industry growth? There's a question that they don't raise here. What is the impact of artificial intelligence on employment growth? So that is a real big challenge. And I think it's understanding that a lot of people are using AI. In my space, artificial intelligence is big. Next week, I'm the chairperson of a conference in the Western Cape that is called the Risk Management Governance Conference, and I'm the day chairperson for the whole conference. And then I have one keynote address, and my keynote address is how did artificial intelligence disrupt the economies of Africa? And when I prepared for that, it is immense. 5 years ago, most countries said AI cannot work in Africa because we have large unemployment. The question has changed. The question is now, where do I get it? No longer, nobody worries about unemployment. Where can I get it? And I think that is a shock. What happens to the population increase? And I think this is an issue in South Africa. We have a huge migration to South Africa, Zimbabweans, Malawians, Kenyans, and so forth. But we also have a huge population migration to the big cities. People are leaving Eastern Cape and they are moving towards Gauteng and the Western Cape. And I think, that creates pressure on itself. What changes are expected in residential and commercial development? Commercial development means more businesses, more job opportunities, and therefore more residential development and so forth. Of course, in a municipality, residential and commercial development means more rates and taxes. What impact will the construction industry have on the budget? The more construction, the more rates, the more property, the more availability charges, the more capital contributions and so forth. You see, the economy is important. And if your business is expanding, it teaches us something. If you guys are in that space, in the infrastructure space in your municipality, 20 years ago, I hosted a summit in Pretoria where investors of Malaysia was coming to Pretoria to look at possible investment opportunities. And we had a meeting in the South African Reserve Bank on the 14th floor. And I was the chairperson of this meeting. And I took a 1-hour session explaining the economy, explaining the opportunities, explaining the new government stability, those days World Cup Soccer 2020 was coming to our country and so forth. And after 1 hour, the leader of the people that attended said to me, Dion, thank you. We really found a lot of value in what you are saying. Here's a gift for your effort, and we will not be investing. And I was dumbstruck. What do you mean you won't invest? I just tell you about all the opportunities. He said, but before you think it's about you, it's not about you. Let me show you something. And he took me to the window. And he says, look at Pretoria. And from that floor, I could see most of Pretoria. He says, count the number of cranes that you can see. And I counted 2 cranes. These big cranes that are moving heavy things when you build a big high-rise, those big cranes. I counted 2. He says, you know what? You can tell me anything about your country, but you don't have enough cranes. He says, we only invest when we count more than 20 cranes. And I thought, you can't be serious. How can you make an investment decision on the number of cranes? He says, we're not making an investment decision on the number of cranes, but we know if there are 21 cranes, 20 other people thought this is a good opportunity. What I see is only 2 other people decided Pretoria is the place. So this is not the place for us. When you get to 21, please contact us again. And from that day onwards, wherever I travel in the world, I try to go to a high-rise building and I go and I stand next to the window and I take a photo of the number of cranes. And I associate the number of cranes to the economic opportunity. And I think that gentleman was right. When a lot of people see opportunity, they develop things. If you're in a town where there's no new buildings, no retirement homes, no shopping centers, no, there's nothing, then it also tells you about economic opportunity. All right. I'm going to skip the last couple of things in this chapter. You can read through them. There's a little bit of repetition there. I still need to get to the last chapter before the end of the session. So in the last chapter on page 88, they talk about the implications of the medium-term revenue and expenditure. And there's a couple of outcomes we want to achieve. Aidan, I think you and even Derek, you guys might have been involved in these processes. South Africa has been voted as one of the countries with the most transparent financial systems on local government level. Most transparent. Why? Because of community participation. 3.3.1. 2 years ago, I came to Drakenstein, to our offices here, and I sat down and somebody said, do you know we have our budget discussion meeting in the town hall? I said, why do you mean it's in the town hall? All our staff is there. Any resident of Wellington, Paarl, Pearl Valley, you know, all these places, for the next week, you can go and visit the town hall, and you can ask anybody about the budget. We are transparent. We want to tell people what we want to do with the budget, where we're going to spend the budget. People can give us inputs and so forth. You see, one thing is, everything you want to do, you want to discuss it with your public, your residents. If they don't buy into it, if they don't tell you what their needs are, then it becomes a problem. Number two, it's integrated. As you know, if you build a new residential area, you must integrate it with planning for roads, planning for a school, planning for public transport, planning for electricity, planning for water pipes. You know, that's part of the implementation of a project. It's not only about building new houses, it's about the big picture. I see in City of Cape Town, we're getting into a problem with our sanitation. We keep on building new houses, but the sewage system can simply not take the load. You know, we have places where that was designed for 2 people, and now we have 6 people staying there. And I know that's an indication of an accommodation problem, but the sanitation system cannot cope with that. Where was the integrated planning at the time? I think that is the question. Legal requirements, there's a lot of laws that we need to abide by. And throughout this course, I'm going to keep on exposing you to new laws, new sections, new whatever in the laws, and we will drive them. 334, every municipality has some key strategic issues. In City of Cape Town, it's influx. It is migration is a big issue. In Drakenstein, it's the fact that there are a lot of rich people here that are staying in places that are looking after themselves. You know, Pearl Valley, Valdevie, and those sort of places are looking after themselves, and Drakenstein still needs to, you know, to balance the budget. And if you go to Bergrivier is a well-run municipality, but low volumes of people. If you go to Laingsburg, high unemployment levels. If you go to Oudtshoorn, you know, it's also unemployment levels. If you go to George is the middle point between the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape, and that is changing the whole structure. Some towns have airports, some don't. If you are in Knysna, how do you export your things? If you are in George, at least you have an airport that can transport things by air. You know, those type of things. What are the critical success factors in a municipality? I believe there are many, but one of them is competency of staff. I often see municipalities failing because the leadership of a municipality does not understand legislation, finance, capital budgeting, infrastructure, project management, ICT, and so forth. I find that a lot of people are telling me that, Dion, you know, our councillors, they don't have the right skills to be on the council, and our election process of councillors are not helping us to form a successful municipality. I'm not criticizing, that's reality. And sometimes, you know, you need to make sure that you resolve those critical success factors. Political buy-in, we can speak about that for ages. And Trump is showing us now that he's creating a lot of havoc. You know, we sit with our own GNU. There's a fight between the ANC and the DA. And you know, the budget's not getting approved, and everybody is unhappy or happy with the VAT increase. You know, all these things are leading us to a position where it is creating conflict and so forth. So if we go down to requirements and principles for, you know, for our new budget and so forth, and understanding where we need to go to as an organization in terms of revenue. Paragraph 3314 is giving us a lot of input. I think there's some points they make, but let's look at them. Minimize cross referrals. I call this red tape. There's so much red tape in the Western Cape, in South Africa. You know, sometimes you need to check with something with your council, then with a provincial government, then with a national government, then with SALGA, then with this, then with that, and it just continues. So I think when we make decisions, it's really about getting to the point where you can actually do your governance with the fewest number of interventions. It's about really making sure that your processes are strong and that you have a reputation of service delivery and successful service delivery. And that will minimize your cross referrals. If you are struggling, if you don't spend your money, there's fraud, there's corruption, there's too many people involved. Number two, avoid duplication. I think often our structures are not well designed. And then we end up in a space where people are repeating things. There's an overlap of responsibilities. So I think that is also creating some sort of issues. Dispute resolution, there should be a mechanism to resolve disputes, specifically, if I can say this, between the council and the municipal manager. Successful municipalities have a straight line. The municipal manager has got a mandate within the law, and the council leaves him to run that mandate. The council has a job within the law, and the municipal manager leaves them to do that. But in many municipalities, the politicians are interfering in the day-to-day operations, and that creates a lot of issues. There should be a limit on the interaction between councils and staff members. If I get 10 Rand for every staff member that told me that a politician, a councillor interfered with his work, I'll be a millionaire. It seems like councillors are going into a municipality and instructing staff to make payments, to allocate contracts, to authorize certain things. And I think the law is very clear in terms of that. So that interaction should be mitigated and managed by the municipal manager. Definition of the areas of responsibilities. Everybody needs to know what they can do. A councillor has a job, a municipal manager has a job, the CFO has a job. And there must be clear lines of responsibilities. Lines of accountability and reporting. Who do you report to? What happens? Who can keep you accountable? When things are going wrong, who's accountable? If we pay excessive prices for goods, who's accountable? If we give a contract to a supplier that is not competent to do the job, who's accountable? If we pay excessive prices for goods, who's accountable? It's that type of thing. Relationship with other structures. And here we talk about probably national, local government. There's a whole course on stakeholder participation where we look at what happens with all these relationships. It's fascinating. The first time I presented that course, I learned so much. And then, of course, lastly, it's also about the municipal manager. I believe a municipal manager must be a strong person with a high set of skills. And how, if we appoint a weak municipal manager, the councils will just run over them. I also believe a municipal manager there can be no allegations against him for fraud and corruption. A municipal manager must have a clean sheet. And I think that's the way we need to take it forward. There's some explanations here as to what is a vote, what are line items, and all sorts of things. But here on page 98, we talk about internal control. Controls are those things that help us to spend money wisely, not to waste money, to get proper authorization, to make sure people don't misuse government vehicles, to make sure people don't misuse overtime, to make sure we don't pay excessive prices and so forth. So there's a little bit of a chapter here on internal controls. Paragraph 4.1.11 says a municipality must have strong internal controls. In 7 or 8 unit standards from now, we are actually looking at the design of internal controls. So here's just a paragraph. There must be good controls. And then secondly, there must be a good audit committee. So audit committee, and specifically in terms of IT, paragraph 4.1.12.1 is specifically in terms of IT. A municipality's audit committee plays a big role. Why IT? Because the world is changing. We have artificial intelligence. We have cybersecurity risks. We have regulatory compliance issues. We have IT projects that are designed, but it never comes to fruition. We spend money on IT, but it doesn't bring value and so forth. So the audit committee's responsibility around information technology is really, really getting more important by the day. There's a lot of other things that I'm just going to highlight quickly. Petty cash purchases on page 103, not read through it, not important. Paragraph 4.1.21, in investment ethics, principles and procedures. Here, I can just refer you to VBS Bank. Every municipality has an investment policy. They call it a cash and investment policy. And in your cash and investment policy, it is very clear that you can only invest with a bank that is investment grade. So VBS was not investment grade. And that is why you find that CFOs and municipal managers that authorized investments into VBS grade, VBS bank, is now being charged and held accountable in courts. Because by law, they were not allowed to invest with the VBS bank. So it is a big issue. And that is why they are specifically targeting the chief financial officer in terms of this investment policy. If you look at the bullet points, the chief financial officer shall be responsible for managing investments. He should appoint a qualified investment manager with approval from council. No outside influence to put money and investments with banks that are not graded. The fifth one, financial institutions will be required to submit confirmation certificates upon the placement of investments. The chief financial officer shall maintain a detailed investment register, shall have safe custody of all the certificates. Investments must be made in the name of the municipality. You know, all these things that are important. No funds will be borrowed for the purpose of investment. You can't borrow money and then put it in investments. The second lecture from now, it's about the cash and investment policy. Then we explain and we interrogate what makes a good investment, what makes it different, what allows you to put money in a certain bank. All right. Paragraph 4.2.3 actually gives us a short summary of where a municipality can invest. If you look at the bullet points at the bottom of the page, a municipality can put money into securities issued by national government. We call that RSA bonds. So a municipality can invest with national government. A municipality can invest with a bank that is registered in terms of the Banks Act. But if you continue further, it says investment graded bank. A municipality on the next page can also list corporate bonds. You can invest in corporate bonds. So this can be Eskom that borrows money, and a municipality can invest with such a company. They can also put deposits with a public investment commission, although I haven't seen any municipality doing that recently. If you go down the fourth bullet point, bankers acceptance certificate, no municipality is doing that. Endowment policies, no municipality is doing that. Repurchase agreements, everybody stays away from that. Municipal bonds, everybody stays away from that. Most municipalities are investing in RSA bonds from National Treasury or putting money into banks where there's a investment graded rating, where the money is then hopefully will be safer than in any other instrument. You are allowed to put it in the other tools, but most municipalities will refrain from doing that. They go through all the responsibilities. You can actually read through those responsibilities at your own leisure. And I need to do one more thing before we run out of time for this session. On page 121, there are financial effects and why do we need a tariff policy? Now, a tariff policy will be your policy that determines how much do you charge people for refuse removal, sanitation, and so forth. Okay. You can see that a couple of bullet points that I'm going to deal with. It's a little bit of repetition, if you can. The first thing is revenue certainty. We have a tariff policy. Why? So that we make sure that we charge people enough so that we make money and that our revenue can cover our expenses. Number two, your revenue must be sufficient to keep you open, to keep you sustainable. Yeah. So we covered that in the first session. There must be sustainability. You must be able to operate over a long time. And I think that is why we have a tariff policy. That's one of the best reasons. At the bottom of page 122, effective, efficient usage of resources. If you don't have money, you can't spend. No money, no pothole fixing. No money, no fixing sanitation. No money, no refuse removal. So when we look at tariffs, is there must be enough money flowing into the municipality, enough to make sure that we get to the point where we can actually afford our expenditure. And 6.4 is really about accountability. If we do not collect, the municipality must be accountable to the community and to the councillors. And what does it mean? When you are working for a municipality and when you are a councillor, your job is to provide services to the community. Failing to do so brings accountability. Accountability means I am not fixing, I'm not doing the right things, I'm not delivering services. But accountability also means if I fail to collect, then I don't have money for services. And that brings accountability. I think the most important point, and I want to summarize this whole chapter. I've been in debates about revenue, about debt write-off, about collection, about implementing processes to collect. I've been in debates my whole life with municipal officials. But here's the trick. Without money, there will be no equity and redistribution. You cannot uplift the poor. You cannot uplift the poor if we don't have money. So charging people that can pay and collecting from people that can pay provides a municipality with the opportunity to deliver services to people that cannot pay. Indigents cannot get free services if revenue collection is not happening well. So that is a really, really important lesson. And that summarizes the whole chapter. All right. Then I need to, in the last 3 minutes, I just want to indicate to you something that will be in the POE. And let me just get to that. Right, I'm just going to get that paragraph. I failed to pick up on this now. Seems to me it's been removed here. But let me just summarize it as I remember it. If a person fails, I'm talking about a person that can pay, if they fail to settle their municipal accounts, there are 7 things a municipality can do. So the first one is to issue a letter of demand. You haven't paid. If you don't pay by this time, we can actually put the next process in place. So a letter of demand. The second thing is the restriction of services. If you don't pay your water, we can reduce your water to a trickle system. And normally the trickle size is the size of the free allowance. Or we can reduce electricity if you don't pay. You can actually attach a person's if a person doesn't pay and there's a tenant in your building, we can also attach, a municipality can also attach the rent. All right. So it's attached salary or attach the rent. Number 4, you can attach movable assets. So movable assets is important because, you know, you can physically attach a vehicle or furniture if somebody doesn't pay the rent. And number 5, you can attach property. So there are 5 steps. somewhere between the letter of demand and then cutting the services, there can be a process that says appoint a lawyer. So there will be a legal process to take you to court to force you to pay. So it's letter of demand, cutting the service, legal letter, attach your salary, attach the revenue that you get from rent, attach movable property, attach the property. So that is a lot of tools that a municipality can, by law, not by Dion or by law, can apply to collect. What I find that successful municipalities, they normally sort the problem out within the first 3 steps. They send a letter of demand, and if people don't pay, they cut. And when they cut, they get their payment. City of Cape Town has gone to attachment of property about 12 times in the last year. Only once that they actually went through with the attachment. 6 times people came back and said, you know what, I don't want you to take my property, I will pay. Now 6 times, I mean, there are millions of residents in the Western Cape. Only 6 times did they have to go through all 7 steps. So I think what it means is that if a municipality shows that they actually want to collect, then I think residents will see that the municipality is serious about revenue collection. If you don't show the residents that you are serious, people will make you the last recipient of cash. They will pay their overdraft, they will pay their bond, they will pay their car, they will pay their clothing account, they will buy data, they will have DSTV. And if you don't change them, they will never pay you. But a municipality that shows that we are equal to Truworths, we are equal to your Standard Bank credit card, we are equal to your vehicle payment. We provide a service, we are rightfully entitled to payment. Once you show people that you are serious, I think people's attitude change towards that. So I think it's something that is really important in terms of the big picture.